I was brought up in a home where my father said, you know, you got to follow the law, you got to do this, you got to do this. And then I looked at law. Law is not just.
If the result of some rule or action or way of life is the detriment of other people's lives, that is the definition of inequity.
You have the power through your own actions, what you do or what you refuse to do, to block injustice.
When do you make that act of moral courage? When do you bend or break the rules because it's the right thing to do?
It is in that act that our humanity is defined.
The Disobedience Prize, what was important was not only to reward people who are doing great things, but also to give courage to and encourage people to always be thinking, am I doing ultimately the socially most responsible thing by doing as I'm told?
If you live in a country where disobedience is risky and lonely, which is most of the world, having recognition elsewhere is hugely important.
It can lend a certain legitimacy to their work, and particularly when it's a sensitive issue.
To highlight some of the sacrifices that people are making.
When we think about how we role model to the future generations, prizes have that characteristic of saying, this is the arc of where we're trying to go.
So the first prize, we gave it to two people, Mona Hanna-Attisha, who's a medical professional in Michigan, and Marc Edwards, who is a university researcher. Two of them together blew the whistle on the Flint lead poisoning issue to save lives. They risked their careers.
We had this very ethical, professional, moral obligation to share this as soon as possible.
They published before they had peer review.
The peer review process takes months. It could take up to a year. Our kids didn't have another day.
We were successful in exposing these crimes, but if you ever want to experience hell on earth, just expose wrongdoing by your friends or your profession or your institutions and be proven right.
I was attacked. The state dismissed my findings, called me hysterical.
Flint's drinking water is meeting applicable state standards.
Now we know in retrospect that there was this huge machine of corruption that was against them.
The risks they took, the actions they took, made a difference.
There's a lot of science in the winners, and I don't think that scientists think of themselves as disobedient. Now, one of our 3 honorable mentions, we had Jim Hansen, who is a scientist who was at NASA, who did the first sort of call out on climate change.
You know, I never considered myself an activist. We should be able to say what the science tells us without political restrictions.
Flint was really about acting quickly and decisively. With Jim, it's about persistence. He's been doing it and he's still doing it.
We had some very fierce debates about who gets to represent good. One of our honorees is Freedom University, Georgia. They are dedicated to educating students who can't go to the Georgia state universities because they're banned as undocumented students.
And it was a tricky situation. I was the only one who was not tenured at the time. So I had all this senior faculty sort of pulling me aside and saying, you're gonna lose your tenure. And then there is the complicated racial tensions in a place like Georgia. All of a sudden, the Ku Klux Klan has contacted me, and I'm getting pulled over every single time that I'm driving. So it got personal, it got scary, but it was absolutely worth it.
I never felt that I was disobedient. I was just responding to an act of injustice.
You have the choice of just doing your job and getting your tenure and getting your funding, or risking it to stick up for those values. You have a choice of taking the violent route or taking the nonviolent route.
We have the Standing Rock Water Protectors. Their success, more than anything, has been building an international movement.
I wasn't quite sure what to do. The kids told me, use your phone, do a live stream. I said, I don't even know what a live stream is. I put up my phone and I asked people to come help me.
I am asking anybody who is willing to stand with us to say that water is important, to come stand with us.
I was so inspired by the response that we never expected.
We had no idea. I'm praying at least 50 people would come stand with me. I came over the hill. There were just hundreds of people, and the people just kept pouring in. It was the world.
MIT is about the future not just because of the technology, but it is about imagining a different society
You cannot have a just world without ethical resistors standing up and doing what's right.
What matters, for example, is not obedience. What matters is the quality of the human spirit. We should recognize the people who help us look in the mirror and see who our better selves can be.
It's now officially an annual thing. Each year we'll tell another story, and hopefully as you start to add up all the years, you get to see the full bouquet of what we're thinking.
I couldn't be prouder of the finalists for the personal risks that they have taken.
One of the key things that we've committed to is supporting, not just financially, but in other ways.
We have to protect them, allow them to thrive in their activity rather than become more vulnerable.
I do know that now, at this age in my life, I will only stand for justice. And by standing for justice means you must be disobedient, because I have the most beautiful grandchildren ever, and they have a right to live.